One of the things that I notice in America is that it is by far the most wasteful country ever. I mean, you have to go behind the supermarket and see how much food they throw away. Now, a lot of times, and this happens in my house, a lot of times you open the fridge and you see things hidden because, well, there was a leftover and you put it in the back of the fridge and you just don't see it, and that food spoils. And let's say, for example, you put a loaf of bread away and you ate something else, and, well, that loaf of bread got moldy. Well, that food spoils. All of that is money that you are throwing away. Same way that supermarkets are throwing away food. Now, the difference is that that food is not costing you money, but the one that you are throwing away is costing you money. The other thing is, let's say, for example, we are in an SHTF and your life depends on a hunt. You go hunting and you got lucky that you got yourself a few rabbits. You golden now, right? Well, if you don't know how to preserve that meat, what good does it do to you? I mean, you can eat for a day, maybe 2 days, and that's it. The rest of it is going to spoil if you don't eat it. But by you preserving that food, well, it guarantees a better tomorrow. So I'm not going to be showing you how to do those type of things. I am going to mention them right here. And it is up to you to go look for the one that benefits you the most. It all depends, honestly, on your budget. It all depends on your environment. It all depends on your time. And let's be honest, for how long you want to store that food. Because depending on all of those things will dictate which one is, well, it's going to be more beneficial for you. Now, canning. Canning is one that, quite honestly, is fairly simple to do. The raw canning is something that you can do as a newbie. A lot of people get how can I say this, discouraged because you're dealing with a pressure cooker. Essentially, that's what it is, a pressure cooker. And they get afraid of. Well, just read the instructions, watch a couple of videos, and I guarantee you that you're gonna be okay. There's nothing really to worry about. Just make sure that you keep an eye on it, especially at the very beginning. You know, if you're not comfortable, keep an eye on it. Make sure that everything is in the parameters that it needs to be. Now, I can tell you for a fact that now I finished canning all my carrots. I was not gonna can them. I was gonna freeze them, but I decided to can them because apparently in my house everybody likes the carrots to be nice and soft when I put it in my ground beef, and that's the way that we eat our carrots and our ground beef. So I can all the carrots that we have there. Trust me, we got quite a bit. So I canned them all. They're all ready, and all we have to do is get a jar, put it in our meat, and bam, that's it. Now, Dehydrating, essentially all you're doing is removing moisture, and that way bacteria doesn't grow. I mean, you can, after that, you can eat it right away. It lasts a bit, honestly. Freezing is the other one that is, I mean, all you have to do is put the food in a Ziploc bag and throw it in the freezer. Now, a lot of folks have said before, well, guess, freeze burn. Honestly, I have ate fish before with freeze burn. I ate chicken before with freeze burn. I ate meat with freeze burn. It's nothing. It's nothing. It's just, honestly, and I'm gonna be honest with y'all, it's just folks being picky. If you don't like the way it looks, then make a stew and you'll be fine. You'll be fine. Pickling is another way of preserving food. That's something that we don't often do in my house. That is preserving food with vinegar, and you know, Dee really doesn't like it. Laz doesn't like it. I know I have a lot of quail eggs, and most of the times, what I do is I make scrambled eggs, big batches, and I freeze dry them, which is another way to preserve food. Freeze drying. Now that, honestly, is the most expensive way to preserve food. It does, however, gives you a greater benefit of all the other, and that is the longevity. You have now food that is going to last for 25 years. That is a very long time, y'all. 25 years is a very long time. Now, let's continue on to the less expensive one, because let's face it, freeze drying, it is a significant investment, and we're going to be talking about that at the very end. So, smoking is another way to preserve food, especially fish and meat. It does change the flavor a bit. To me, it makes it taste even better, honestly. Vacuum sealing is a way of preserving food. All you're doing is removing all the air in special bags that they have, and it does help with the freeze burn. It really does help. Jarring is another way of preserving food. That is something that we really don't do either. Same as pickling, we just don't do it. Salt curing is a way to preserve, especially meat, salting meat and fish. It had been done for years and years and years. In fact, that's why salt was so precious back in the days, because that was one of the ways to preserve food for a very long time. This is something that a lot of people don't know, but back in the day too, pineapples were preserved in salt. In fact, I only eat my pineapples with salt, believe it or not. And those of you who never tasted that before, give it a try. You're probably gonna like it. It brings a different flavor. So there also is root sailing, which essentially is storing your vegetables in a cool, humid place, and it prolongs freshness and whatnot. So now let's talk about the whole freeze drying, because that is the most modern way to preserve food. And I mentioned before that is the most expensive one. A regular freeze dryer, a cheap one, can cost you, I don't know, $15,000 to $2,000. It is a significant investment. However, I will say this, and I know I always get pushback from folks who do things different. First of all, you have to do what is right for you, and if you have the funds to invest in that particular machine, I think it's worth it. I really do think it's worth it. If you get a deer today, or if you get rabbits and whatnot, and you want to preserve that food for 25 years, canning may not do that trick. Dehydrating may not do that trick. Pickling definitely is not going to do that trick. Fermenting food, which I didn't mention, but that's another way to preserve food, it's not going to do that trick. Vacuum sealing it, it's not going to do it. So you have one choice for 25-year shelf life, and that is freeze drying. Now, there are foods that are not very freeze dry friendly. And I can tell you right now that I learned this the hard way, because I did 150 eggs, boiled eggs, in a freeze dryer. It did not come out good. They were very rubbery. At the end of the day, what I did is I grind them up and I feed them to the pugs. So not wasted. Well, wasted in a way, because I wasted that time and that energy that I put into it. But me, that I have an exceeded amount of quail eggs, what I do now is I do scrambled eggs, cook them and whatnot in the oven, and I freeze dry them, and they are delicious. If I want to do meat, bam, 25 years. In fact, the other day I made a stew, and I got one of my bags, I open it and I put it in the pot. Delicious. You can make your own meals. Think about it. For an example, I like Cuban food. So what I had done to satisfy my taste is I make my meals, and I freeze dry them. Like rice with black beans and ground beef and stuff like that. And I put it in Mylar bags. Well, now I have food that I like, and I take it with me when I go hunting and whatnot, and I don't have to spend a lot of money in peak refuel. Not that peak refuel is not good, but I prefer my food better. Let's be honest. And that's something that it gives you that ability. So, is it expensive? Yes, it is very expensive. Is it a worth investment? If you have the funds, I think it will be. I think it really will be. If you don't have the funds, don't feel bad. Dehydrating food works. Canning works. Pickling works. Smoking works. Actually, I like smoking a lot. Vacuum sealing works. Salt curing works. Pressure, I mentioned pressure canning already. I was going to mention it again. And root celling works as well. Now, there are limitations with the root celling. That I'm going to mention that. That's just for vegetables. If you stick a piece of meat in that root celling, well, let's say that it's not going to end well. I can guarantee you that. And there are ways to, if you don't have let's say electricity or whatnot, there are ways to make a refrigerator, quote unquote, that requires no electricity. It's just to keep the temperature as low as possible. I can talk about that in a future video if you guys want me to. But nonetheless, food preservation is a skill that everybody needs to acquire right now. It will be critical for you in an SHTF to know how to preserve your food. In fact, it is also critical right now for you not to be throwing food away. Every piece of bread that you throw away right now is money and time that you are throwing away. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. So with that being said, let me know what you think in the comment section below. Like always, rock on, prep on, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye, everybody.